Airport improvement was up 29,000, totaled 4,651,474. That is an increase of 2 million as compared to 24. Some notable areas of increased expenditure. Leading the increase mentioned was the library, to the library in the amount of $1,251,000. That's due simply to the timing of that allocation. Another large increase was in health insurance, up $161,000 due to this expenditure, including 2 months' invoices. Other contractual for IT was up $182,000 due to timing of invoices, but also an increase for the move to the cloud with the financial software package. New equipment reserve expenditures rose $144,000 for the purchase of golf course mowers and fire department rescue tools. Some notable areas of decreased expenditure: commission cap reserve fell due to the above-mentioned $200,000 transfer for the new firehouse. Special parks was off $47,000 for the design start of the multi-use path last year. And swimming pool was down $19,600 as they purchased chlorinators and pumps a year ago in preparation for the opening day. Month-to-date general fund sales tax collections were at $935,000. That was an increase of $6,900 or 0.75% compared to last year. Year-to-date general fund sales taxes are up $78,745 or 4.7%. The 6-month average was at 3.49, which was a year-over-year increase of 2.3%. Year-to-date county sales tax collections were up $209,000 or 11,800. The report of top 10 quarter-to-date sales tax collections by classification was up $181,278 or 5.5%. Those top 10 represent 74% of the total. And then finally, the total par value of the U.S. Treasuries for February was $6.717 million with a weighted average yield to maturity of 4.3. That is down 1/3% from a year ago. Total of the portfolio certificates of deposit on February 28th was $61,438,862 with a weighted average rate to maturity of 4.78. That is down 1/4 from last year. Total balance of the money market account on February 28th was $4.7 million with a current yield of 3.388. That's down 0.75% from a year ago. Total investments were up $2,615,654.
Make a motion we approve the February 2025 financial report.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Musil, seconded by Commissioner Barrick. Any comments or questions for Mr. Rupp?
It's good to see the sales tax is up.
Yeah. Speaking of sales tax, I found it interesting. For the last 3 years, February is one of the highest months.
So we're just having this discussion. We're always 2 months in arrears on those. So you're
Okay.
talking probably
Christmas.
Yep.
got a little Thanksgiving shopping in there, but December mainly.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's when I buy my toys.
Right? Okay.
There's nothing further. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
We've reached the point in our agenda for citizen comments. Anybody, we have a nice group here tonight. If you want to take your place up there, and if you tell us who you are, please.
Hi, I'm Tina Sarver. I think you all got an email from me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to talk about allowing backyard chickens and hays.
Might have you speak up just a little bit. I don't know if that,
The microphone.
that microphone's not going to help us, but I
Okay.
think standing,
My bad.
yeah.
I think you all got a paper from me. Okay, I did a pros and cons so that I could kind of alleviate, see what would need to be done to eliminate the cons and to kind of keep it under control. So we don't want everybody getting chickens and then having free chickens everywhere because they got them like Easter bunnies, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think a permit would be a great idea so that not everybody is getting chickens and they'll have to put the work into it and get themselves a coop and take care of them. And so I think a permit would be good in a yearly fee to pay for having chickens. I've checked areas around here. The bigger towns, they allow a lot of chickens. I think Lawrence was 20 chickens. I don't think that many chickens is needed.
That's a
I
lot
thought
of
5
chickens.
was a good number because if you had 5 chickens and they each laid an egg a day, are you going to eat 5 eggs a day? And you could share it with your family, you know? Eggs are healthy and good for you, and I would love to have healthy farmed chickens. They make better eggs, I think. And then if this was back in the day when my kids were little, my daughter would have loved this because she would have loved to have been part of 4-H, but we were in town, so she couldn't do it. And then this way, in-town kids could have a chance to be able to do the poultry in the 4-H. Do you guys have any questions for me? Or anything I could say?
Commissioners?
I have not a problem with it. I grew up, my father had a hatchery, and we had chickens around all the time.
Yeah.
I can say that if you have too many chickens, chicken refuse is the worst smell
Yeah.
ever. But if you keep them down to very few in number, they're great. They're great animals to have. Eggs are great, and as long as they're spread out and you have a place for them, they're not no roosters. They're not too noisy. So I think that it's not a bad idea, especially if we're never going to have such a population. I wouldn't think that we'd have to worry about bird flu or anything like that. So, I can see the positives in it.
Yeah, I can definitely see the positives as well. I think you've done a good job thinking through the pros and the cons, and I know I saw that you had started a petition as well and
Yes, ma'am.
had several hundred signatures, so thank you for bringing it to us.
Absolutely.
You know, I grew up on a farm. We'd raise 200 chickens every year. That's probably a little too much for
Oh,
Hayes.
goodness.
But I personally am not for or against. I mean, if we see enough people that think it's a good idea, I don't think it's going to hurt. But
I think it could be taken care of just like cats and dogs. You know, if you have a dog at large, you get a fine for having a dog at large. If you
Yeah.
don't have a permit to have chickens, I think you should get fined for not having your permit.
Sure.
So,
yeah, and I think I talked to a few of you guys. I think I probably talked to 10, 15 people, and it's like split right down the line. You know, some love it, some hate it. I mean, I don't know.
I know there are some farmers that were worried about like the Easter Bunny thing, that people will get the chickens and then there's going to be a whole bunch of free chickens that are trying to look for homes. But I really feel like the permit's going to,
Cannibals would
where they
take
have to
care of
have adequate coops and shelter for their chickens and everything. I think it would eliminate a lot of that.
Commissioner Reuter?
What would it look like from a staff perspective and what we'd have to do for this?
It depends on whatever policy the commission puts in place.
I guess, have you had a chance to look at these?
No, we just got these earlier, but I mean, we've studied the issue. I mean, I think high level from a staff perspective, we would advise a minimalist approach, put a framework in place. If there are problems, you could get into licensing and things like that, but I'm not sure I would start there, something that's going to be onerous.
I was just going to
On
say
our
the same
part.
thing. I'm not sure we want to jump in at that level at this point. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead if
No,
you
no,
have
no.
anything else.
Nope.
I'm extremely impressed with the work you've done, and I appreciate that. We don't often have somebody come forward with an idea that has actually done their homework as good as you have. They all do their homework, just not quite as good as you've done.
Thank you.
We appreciate all this information. I have no problem with it. I didn't grow up on a farm, but you know, the experience of gathering eggs and raising chickens were on my grandparents' farm, and my daughter has a farm now, and her kids have grown up with that. And it's too bad that this young people in community can't. And if they can do it for 4-H, that's all the better. So I
think
don't
my
have any
grandbabies
problem.
would love it.
Yeah, I have a grandson that's been taking care of the 40 chickens since he was about 6, and he's 12 now, and he just owns them, you know.
Good responsibility
It
to teach
is,
them.
it is. So I think what our recommendation is at this point is to ask staff for a recommendation.
Well, if you want, we can put together a proposed policy and bring it to you at a work session to discuss. That'll get you the opportunity for public input for or against, and you guys could decide if you wanted to
Everybody okay with
modify
that?
it.
Yep.
That's great.
All right, that's how we'll move forward. Thank you so much, Tina, for
Yes,
coming forward.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our consent agenda, one item of the consent agenda, I had everything in order a minute ago, is another appointment to the Hayes Housing Authority Board. Mr. Al Klaus has applied for another 4-year term. He's been on there, this will be his 4th term. His commitment is really strong, and I recommend approval of that. So I'd ask for approval of the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Reuter, seconded by Commissioner Cunningham. I don't think there's probably any more discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Now we're ready for them women, the women who lead. Talk about Sunrise Park improvements, and it's such a timely thing for you guys to be coming forward because we just had a good discussion about parks.
I like toys.
You don't want
You're
to,
supposed to throw them.
there's certain people you don't want to have toys at this table.
Grandma take put an eye out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mel.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Ruth Ruder. I'm currently president of Women Who Lead, and with me is Nancy Jeter. Everybody in the city knows Nancy. So first, I'm going to start with our mission statement, which is inspiring and empowering women to affect change in our community. So if you haven't heard of Women Who Lead, you haven't done your research, because we're everywhere. That's why we're here with you today. We want to talk to you about a park project, tell you a little bit about what we've done in the city. Last year in November, we did the park lighting project that Women Who Lead paid for. So dog park, that we did last year and paid for that. We're to understand that that has gone over very well, and people are pleased with that. We also did the Arc Park lights and security cameras, which we have been told by Jeff Boyle several times about how that's deterred vandalism and whatnot in the community. So we're proud of those two
Catching
projects.
little criminals.
Yeah. We're proud of
We're
that
just making us safer.
I like that.
We
Oh,
also have
Nancy.
partnered with your Youth Advisory Council this year with the kids that have come forward that are from the TMP and Hayes High to understand, and helping them with just knowing people in the community with the bullying project and suicide prevention project that we did currently with TMP. We helped get High Plains Mental Health involved with that, along with Sheriff Brown and those types of things. I had a little bit of help from my son there, but we're proud of that project and that initiative going on as well. So we encourage that and love that the kids came forward with it. So those are a couple of things that we're really proud of. So we're here today to talk to you about Sunrise Park, and we're going to bring up Mr. Boyle. We think pretty highly of this guy, even though he brings us down to reality sometimes. We dream and imagine, but
Doesn't he just pokes and dreams sometimes, doesn't he?
right?
Yeah,
Right.
Pops the
He
balloon.
scolds us.
He's a realist.
He's doing his job, Toby.
That's right.
But we love him. I mean, my goodness, he is so wonderful to work with.
He is. Him and Justin
Level
both.
head,
You can tell
yes.
that they really have a passion for parks and know what reality is for the city and the expense and the cost for employees and stuff. So we respect that about Jeff. Don't always agree with what he tells us not to do, but we're going to keep pushing our visions towards him. But we want to just do a little presentation here for you. So right here, we currently have the 6-disc golf course there that you guys have probably seen. And recently, there was the Flying Bison Disc Tournament that was there last week, and I heard it was a pretty good turnout with the 6 that they had. My parents live across the street from that park, so I get to see and hear a lot of what goes on at that park. So we are looking at adding 3 more to make it a 9-hole course. So we're excited about that. If we get approval from you all today. We are to understand that they did supply, the Bison group did supply like a place where they put Frisbees that people can share in the community. And I'm to understand that it's working and they're actually putting the Frisbee back so everybody can use them. So that's kind of cool that the community there has just brought that together. It's fun to watch different age groups that are there, 5 to 80. I've seen over there. So different age groups that are doing it, family there. Okay, there's our beautiful sign if you haven't driven by. The old one didn't look so nice. We were told by Jeff when we started that project that was the first thing that needed replaced because of the way it was warped and withering away with it being a wood sign. So that's what it looks like now. We'd like to put some lighting on it eventually. But we're pretty proud of that sign and it looks beautiful. If you haven't driven by, please do so.
We've been able, we feel great that we were able to keep the flavor, so to speak. It looks very similar to the old design, but now it's going to last many years. And
I have been by,
How's
it's
that
really
look?
bright, really nice improvement.
So what we're currently working on and projecting this year is these, so up in where the green is, that's where the disc golf course currently is, and then adding those 3 additional ones. And then looking at the ball fields that are currently there. So Jeff informed us that that one, you can kind of see where it's flooded there, is not up to par, and Jeff could probably speak better on behalf of that. It's not working.
Okay. You want me to do?
That one, that you can that it's not up to par.
Thank you, Vanna.
And then the other one is used, now this field is used a lot.
How many?
Move it up.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that one's the one that floods, so it currently doesn't get a lot of play action on it because it's not level. So that would be our first phase about looking at doing that. We do
Putting it
have-
back to a ballpark, I mean, back
Putting
to,
it
okay.
back to ball fields.
Thank you.
Yes, because we visited with Jeff about do we need to at the park, and he said yes, that they definitely did when he spoke to Hayes Rec Commission as well about how many kids need the ball field still, that there's a waiting line to use those.
Yep.
And with all the ball teams that are in town, that would be helpful for that to finish it out. So those are the 2 projects. So our vision is to the one ball field, we'd love to have it like maybe girl related, like there's no crying in baseball, right? And then our other
Sign
one
up.
is if you build it, they will come type thing on the other ball field, kind of giving it a little bit of a vision of what they could expect or have or feel that they want with the ball field. So that's our vision there. We do have some help from M&D that basically told us we could maybe do a buy one, get one free. They'd help with that expense, that it wouldn't be part of the Parks Department, that they would have to do that. So M&D has stepped up to do that, so we appreciate M&D as well. They also helped us with the dog park lighting too. And then the next phase would be the basketball court. I don't know if you can see the basketball court down over, keep going over to the right there. So right now there's a tiny one, and it's just like a junior size. So when we visited with Jeff, we thought a bigger one for older kids, college, high school, junior high, that they could play, maybe leave the little kids alone, that we could put that there, and we think it would be really utilized very well over there. There's always kids playing at that part of it, the park as well too. So that's the phases we're looking at right now for phase 1. So the ball field improvements would be $13,600, 3 additional disc golf holes, $1,950. The kiosk disc golf maps, the solar lights for park sign and trash cans, $3,600. The new basketball court at $30,000 for a total of $49,150.
We are not asking the city for any funding.
We're asking for your permission to allow us to proceed with these renovations to the park, of giving opportunity for kids and families to again enjoy that park as they did in the past. When we went back and looked at history, one of the things that was interesting was back in 1974, I believe it was, we went through newspaper articles. They actually tried to pass a bond for that park to put tennis courts in and everything. We won't talk about the swimming pool that was put in there. But yeah, that was actually that got voted down back in, I believe it was 1974. So it's kind of interesting to see the history of how that park has evolved. One thing that we've noticed too, and we've heard things about, is with Roosevelt being added onto, that they think the kids from there could actually utilize the disc golf, the basketball court, just to get outside and play as well too. So those are positive things that we've heard from the community that they would be excited about as well.
Well, as usual, the Wonder Woman League never ceases to amaze me. We've just been, as you probably have heard from Jeff, that's my main topic lately, and Commissioner Cunningham's as well, of what we need to do to our parks, and my favorite phrase, where do money come from? And the wonderful piece of this, not only all of the improvements, but the bottom line is you're not asking the city for the money. I always ask for one thing from Jeff, and that's a fiscal note in terms of if this changes what we have to do. And if you could comment to that, Jeff, I'd appreciate it.
Most of these items are things that we've actually been trying to get done over the years anyway. So like trash cans, for example, I'm just picking on that one because it just happened here last week. Without trash cans, we have to walk the entire park picking the trash up. So having a trash can in certain locations along the course would help us tremendously because we're making one stop. Now, sure, there's going to be trash that blows in and what have you, but that would be one example. The kiosks, the maps, solar lights, those are all minimal maintenance, really. We had early on, we had problems with solar lights on North Vine. When we bought the new ones, the more upgraded ones with the LEDs, we haven't had any problems with them at all. So that has not been an issue. The ball fields have been in bad shape for years. As Ruth mentioned, the West Field, every time it rains, it sits full of water. So Hayes Rec can't even get on there for 4 or 5 days until the water goes off. What M&D's proposed to do for us will fix all of that, and they plan on bringing red dirt in as part of that to make the infills, drain and do the right thing. Because the red dirt with the sand mix in it dries out a lot quicker. So what M&D has offered is tremendous. And then of course. The new basketball court, that's been something that for years we've said that park needs a basketball court, but it's one of those things, it's $30,000. We've got other things that we need to be fixing. We're not going to do that this year. It just keeps getting pushed down the line. So, and a basketball court is minimal maintenance. Put a net on every year, every other year, maybe a little painting on the stripes every couple of years. And Nancy wants them to be pink.
I think pink would look great.
So really what we're looking at here, these are all standard things that are really low maintenance. So this does not concern me at all as far as that goes.
It's like found money. I always, to have you come forward, and for us to look for $50,000 in the budget to do this in one park would be very, very difficult. For you to step forward and want to do this for the community, it's those quality of life issues that we cannot ignore. And with everything else we have to do, the fact that there's many organizations such as yours that come forward and want to do this is so appreciated. Commissioners?
With the ball field improvements, did that include the fencing, backstops?
That does include backstop repair on the east field.
On the east field, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
The one on the west field was done back in about mid-2005, so it's still in good shape.
Okay, thank you very much.
If you haven't found anybody to sponsor the 2 little signs you want to put on each one with the
Well, we need.
no crying in
Felt
baseball.
like we needed your approval. All we need is, go get them and.
And they go get them,
That is one thing that this group has always
Yeah, you're right.
has always been, is it's not a wait and see kind of thing. It's always been this is what we need. Okay, let's go do it. I mean, most of these things came up in the last 6 months or something like that. It's not something you've been stewing on for a long time. It's like, okay, there's a project, let's get done. Project, get
The
done.
community's very supportive. I mean, we could not do it alone. However, it helps when we have 176 members now that are well-connected and, help us with our fundraising. And we feel like we've done a lot of really worthwhile projects and completed 40 last year. And so this is going to be one of our major ones. I have
I've been
no
a
doubt
member.
we'll find it.
I've been a member since the beginning. I feel like such a slacker because
26?
I haven't
We
been
started with
because I
26.
haven't been able to come because the meetings are on Thursdays, but our meetings are early enough now that when we get through them that I can probably start coming
Love
to
to
meetings.
have
It's really cool.
Jeff, I do have a question on that basketball court. I know a few years ago we had a college student on 13th Street, the old high school, kind of revitalized that. And you go down there at times and the rims are all bent down. I mean, how do you prevent that, or do we have very much problem with that?
We don't have any problem with that right now.
Okay,
Um,
it's good to hear.
Now, we do have this is another reason why it's important to Sunrise, I think. We do have the older kids like to slam dunk
Yeah,
on
exactly.
the small courts.
Right.
If we can give them a place to go and not do that, but we haven't had any issues with
Good,
it.
that's good
So-
to hear. Good enough for me.
I just want to say again, thank you, because the parks and their sustainability has been at the top of my mind since I joined the commission. And without groups like you guys coming forward, it makes it really difficult for us to do upgrades and replace things. So again, thank you so much. You're bringing a great project and not only repairing things that need to be repaired, but adding some, the additional holes, the basketball court, but you're not adding something that creates more cost in the end for us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, he won't let us.
Sustain. That's
Thank
his
you,
goal.
Jeff.
Good job, Jeff.
We call him top dog, you know.
So phase 2, so we're looking at like next year, pushing that even harder.
Or once this is done.
Yeah, once this is done, because we're looking at applying for grants and whatnot, but replace the existing playground with a newer updated playground and fall zone material. Cost is expected around $100,000 to $200,000 depending on the needs assessment. And then Women Who Lead would pursue, as I said, grants and fundraisers to help pay for this project. Jeff has pointed out to us about how it is deteriorating, what we can upgrade to newer equipment, better equipment, more equipment for smaller children up to 12 years of age. So we've discussed different options and things that maybe we could do for those different age groups, maybe putting them in different phases around the park too, so they're not all together. So those are our dreams and wishes.
Jeff has some great ideas, that placement and ideas for different equipment and.
I visited with him about some visions that we had that Jeff doesn't seem too excited about with us right now, but we're going to persuade him to change his mind as that goes on. But so I have some girls working on that right now. But so the vision of that park, I don't know if you've been there either since Roosevelt's been redone. All of those evergreens that were there in between the school and those are all removed. So the city's planted trees and it's just so beautiful. And we
all
think
of
we
the
can
parks.
make it look really, really great. So this will be a project we'll be looking at for next year to raise
Awesome.
funds and look at grants. So
This year.
if you guys have any ideas or things for grants that we could pursue as well, if you have park grants that you are aware of that we could maybe.
I have, Nancy, if you want to see, either one of you want to give me a call or let's have coffee sometime. I've got a couple ideas for some larger foundations that are looking out in this area.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
Love
Thank
that.
you.
Well,
Yeah.
no,
I
we
need a motion, I think, before, and
I move to authorize the Women Who Lead to proceed with fundraising for Phase 1 and Phase 2 improvements for Sunrise Park.
Second.
moved by Commissioner Reuter, seconded by Commissioner Cunningham. Now, any ending discussions, since we've already had a half hour's worth? I just let it go right by, sorry.
No, I think it's great that, A, you did your work ahead of time, so you got some approvals from the Parks Department, thought it through, and the fact that, we've talked a lot about sustainability as issues, and you brought things where the improvements are not things that are adding, things that are going to cost a whole lot of money to upkeep, as Commissioner Cunningham said, and some of the things that need to be improvement were things that were on our list that needed to be paid for but weren't. So you sort of, in a sense, really took that off our plate. So we figure maybe we could just put you on our planning budget for the next 20 years for the parks. We can just, we'll be able to pull that off.
We're biased, but we'd love to do that.
They can get it done, too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
wouldn't question
saying.
it for a second.
Absolutely.
I remember hosting you guys' small meetings when you guys were growing and how it became so big that you had to go somewhere else, and just amazing the people you have involved. I commend your whole organization. You guys do great work. Thank you guys.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Thank you,
very
ladies.
much.
We
And-
appreciate you
Thank you,
very
ladies.
much. And I know we speak for the community when we say that.
Thank you. And we want to just, kudos to Jeff and Justin. Again, they take
Jeff.
such pride in their work in the city, so we really appreciate their input.
If you get past Jeff, that's a good thing. So if you get that far here, that's a good one.
Have you seen him walk? It's not that hard to get by him.
Did they kick you, Jeff? Did they kick you ahead of time? Is that what happened?
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, guys.
Item 7 on our agenda, resolution setting public hearings for the establishment of a reinvestment housing incentive district, Tallgrass Second Edition, Phase 4.
Good afternoon, Jared Kuckelman, Assistant City Manager. So today we will be discussing the next steps in the process to establish a Reinvestment Housing Incentive District, or RHID, as part of the Tallgrass Phase 4 development. So Heart of America is the developer behind the Tallgrass Second Edition development. After the success of the first 3 phases, Heart of America is proposing to continue on with phase 4 of the project, which would involve the creation of approximately 101 new residential lots. Phase 4 would continue with a pretty similar type of housing as the first phases, but would also allow for some more variety in housing types, including a potential for some multifamily units. As with the first 3 phases, Heart of America is requesting an RHID to cover the eligible costs. So just as a reminder on how RHIDs work, RHIDs are established by cities or counties based on a housing needs analysis to capture the incremental gains in property taxes for up to 25 years. RHIDs can be financed by bonds or pay-as-you-go, and at their expiration, the full improved valuation of the district goes back to the tax rolls for all jurisdictions. So as the RHID captures the incremental property taxes, that money can go towards reimbursing certain development costs, particularly the infrastructure costs like the site prep, the streets, water and sewer lines, and some of the other utility services. The image here shows what the RHID district looks like. The improvements to the district as they are outlined in the proposed development plan include any and all infrastructure that is needed to support this development. So here's an image showing what the plat for phase 4 looks like and what the development may end up looking like in the end. Like I mentioned, the plan would be to create approximately 101 lots for development. So this is a pretty big project we're talking about. For financial consideration, the developer has proposed to provide the city a deposit that is equal to 30% of the projected infrastructure costs. The developer is also proposing that the city then finance and construct the infrastructure for the development and utilize the RHID revenues as well as that deposit to offset the costs. The eligible project costs are estimated to be approximately $6 million, while the RHID is estimated to generate about $6.867 million of revenue over 25 years. If the development were to not generate sufficient increment to cover the costs after 6 years, the city would have the option to take ownership of all undeveloped lots. So here's the calendar to show where we are at in the process, which is discussing passing the resolution, which calls the public hearing. This public hearing would be set to be held on May 8th, and after the conclusion of the hearing, you all would be able to vote on the ordinance that would officially establish the RHID district. So all told, the process should be complete of forming the RHID by early June. The infrastructure for this project is currently in the design phase, and the engineering work should be wrapped up by about August, so hopefully this time frame with the RHID and the infrastructure is able to align to work out. So these are the options for you today. You can adopt the resolution, decline to adopt it, or provide other direction. And this will be the action requested.
I move to adopt resolution number 2025-002, setting a public hearing for the establishment of an RHID and adoption of the development plan.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Reuter to second by Commissioner Musil. Discussion. Questions?
You're going.
I got a quick question, and it's not necessarily related to this because I think this is a great project. It's more related to the RHID process. I know I don't want to go too far into it. Don't want the state to pull that too, but
Then you better be quiet.
I mean, this is an 8-month process where you kind of hear the same thing over and over for 8 months. I mean, not much changes in those 8 months, at least from what's being reported to us. Maybe a few things here and there developmentally. I mean, is there a reason it has to take 8 months every single time? I mean, statutorily, we're following what they've laid out, but do you have any idea why they made it so long?
So the reasoning would be to allow ample opportunity in some ways for public comment. I mean, so we're here before you today, so you can set the date for that public hearing. You then have to have a certain amount of time before that public hearing can be held, because there are some very specific statutory guidelines on how often that's published for people to see, as well as give a time frame for the time between when you're setting it and when it's held, so that like you didn't call it tomorrow and not give like,
Right.
proper notice.
Which I understand
So
that.
That's at least part of it. And I certainly know that the reasoning is that when it comes to where the property taxes are going, that's a big consideration that they want. They being the powers that be, ensure that proper public comment is offered and that as much consideration is put in. And then going back even further, the very first step we did was even just drawing the district lines. And that has to go to the state, to the Secretary of Commerce for approval. So we have to submit that first and then wait on that approval to come down, which can take anywhere from a few weeks to a month or two. So
Right.
we can't proceed with these next steps until that happens. So
Which, yeah,
it
that
creates
makes
a
sense.
scenario where at the minimum it tends to take about 5 or 6 months to do this process.
You know,
And
if-
then that's the other point is the other taxing entities give up their property taxes
Right, yeah,
as
I guess
well.
I'd
So you
forgotten about that
Give them a
point.
veto period at the end. They have to be notified prior to the public hearing that we're considering this, so then letters are mailed out to them, so it's
Sorry, that's just
making
like 3-4
sure that-
months away, so I hadn't thought about it. So that all makes sense. I mean, and I want to make sure that there's ample notifications, people are understanding what's going on. It's just maybe the millennial in me, I'm impatient.
It's just like you said. I mean, even this morning on the radio, I heard that, hey, the number one issue for Hayes for growing workforce is housing. And so I was sitting there thinking, well, we as a city are doing everything we can to help boost housing. So I absolutely echo the fact that, yeah, when you hear the same thing over 8-month or 12-month period, you're like, how are we trying to get this push so we can sort of start resolving these problems? But it's understandable what it is, but I'm just glad that we're continuing to push.
Yeah,
And
because
it's
I'm
not-
glad, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm glad we opened it up a few years ago. I mean, because it wasn't used like, except for maybe once.
Yeah.
And now look at all these homes that are happening in the last 5 years. So it's a great program. I have nothing against the program. But
I think an important thing that's kind of been drummed into my head is, you know, the cost of development is huge. The timeline of development is even a bigger issue in some cases. I think Vice Mayor Reuter's part of a workforce committee that I was visiting with and reading some notes from their meeting, and all they talk about is the needing housing, and all we're talking about is how much housing we have going. When the day starts that a person decides they want to develop housing in this community, RHID aside, because that just adds to it, year and a half
right.
before we can make things happen. You know who's been telling me that. I think that I think people need to understand that, because I think people want to buy a piece of property and do a development, which we appreciate, and we're getting private dollars into development, which is what our goal was.
Right.
But understanding that you buy this piece of property, you don't get to go out and build houses tomorrow. And so the more we can educate our community on that whole process, the more important I think it is.
Well, and Toby, 10 years ago, I mean, we talked about RHID, and it was like the end of the world, you know, just even bringing it up. And now we're using it, and
Yeah.
we got a lot of stuff going on. I think there's more positive came out of this than I ever believed there would be, so
Totally agree. Totally
It's a
agree.
good program.
it is.
Okay, if there's no other comments, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you, Jared. 2024 building code update. We're always so excited to see Jesse to talk about building codes.
Yes. Best topic of the day.
Yes.
Excited to see him, period.
Good afternoon, Jesse Rohr, Director of Public Works. And I do want to talk about getting your consideration for adoption of updated building codes, which would include the 2024 International Building Code, or IBC, and the International Residential Code, or the IRC. So just a little bit of background. The International Code Council, who is the publisher of these codes and has been since 2000, drafts new codes every 3 years. So they don't come out every year, but every 3 years. We're currently under the 2015 codes, which we adopted in 2017. So we did not adopt the 2018 codes. We did not adopt the 21, but now we're looking at the 24 codes. So As is typical with any code adoption process for us anyway, we have standard amendments and from time to time different amendments from one code cycle to another, which is the case this time as well. And considering the process that we used here and depending on how this goes, there are more codes to update besides IBC and IRC. So this is the first step, and we really focused on the process this time as much as anything and did it different than we had in the past. So, but there are additional codes such as the fire code, property maintenance code, electrical codes, plumbing and mechanical codes that we do want to bring to you at some point, hopefully in the near future for your consideration as well. So if we do that, the process will be the same. And I'll talk about our process here in just a minute as well, but we'll follow the same type of process as we did for this one here. So there's a lot of reasons to update new codes. There's maybe reasons not to as well, but we feel it's important to do it at this time. Since 2015, so it's been, we're going on 10 years now. There's a lot of advancements in technology and building components, those sort of things. We typically, with codes, for the history of codes, there's almost always an increase in fire and life safety. That's probably the primary reason for the codes. Accessibility is a big deal in the codes, and energy efficiency has come about in more recent codes. And it does allow for more modern construction techniques and products than what we see in older codes as well. So, but as times change, again, we feel the need to change the codes as well. So, so I mentioned the process that we use. So in the past, we had a building trades board, and we lumped all the codes together, and we brought the commission 8 or 9 different codes at one time. And again, this time we decided to break it apart, kind of take it in chunks, and we developed a code committee that was comprised of local licensed contractors. With this being the IBC and IRC, those contractors were primarily the building contractors. The process in the future, for example, the electrical code, we'll get the electrical contractors in the room like we did the building contractors or plumbing, mechanical, whatever code we're doing at the time. So the code committee met several times with staff to go over the codes, the new codes and changes and possible amendments. And then when we were comfortable with the changes and the proposed amendments, staff, along with the code committee, hosted and attended another meeting with local licensed contractors. They were all invited, and again, we focused on those building trades for this set here, and had a meeting, fed them lunch. It was a good discussion, and out of that discussion, we had minor amendments that were proposed for adoption, which are included in the draft ordinance in your packet. We felt the open house meeting with the contractors was very well attended. We were very happy with the turnout. Sometimes you throw a party like that and nobody comes, and that's kind of worst case scenario. So it was well attended, and we felt it was very successful. Up here, I do want to recognize the code committee members for this particular set of codes. Again, they spent several hours, in addition to I don't know how many hours that staff, particularly Curtis Dinas and Alex McCune, spent on code review even before we got to the code committee part. So, but these 7 gentlemen here were all part of the process. I mean, some of the meetings were 3 hours long, so it wasn't coming in for 30 minutes, and it was a process. And since we skipped certain codes, I mentioned we skipped the 18 and 21 and 24. So not only did we have to look at the changes to the 24 codes, but what occurred in 2018 and 2021 as well. So all that had to be reviewed through this process, and again, we had a lot of discussion, and felt that the whole process in itself went very well. So the amendments we have there, what we feel are relatively minor, but they do make additional allowances and generally reduce code restrictions. We try to cover all potential amendments that we can find as going through these new codes, and just like we have with the Unified Development Code in the past, we occasionally come to you and say, hey, we found something else we can change that will make building easier or development easier. That could happen with the building codes in the future as well, but we feel like we did a very comprehensive review, and we'll see how it goes again with the additional codes that we want to look at. But with this we feel quite comfortable. There are certain things that are allowed in the new code that we don't have in the 2015 code that you can see on your screen here. There's provisions in there for tiny homes. we have a developer considering a small tiny home development here. And under our current code, it's not that he couldn't do it, but there's no provisions, there's no allowances. So there's some things in there that will benefit that type of development. Electric vehicle charging stations within homes, that's something we're starting to see. Our current codes don't address that sort of thing. New codes do. Solar systems on roofs, they've become very popular the last several years here, both on residential and commercial properties as well. And overall, just we feel increased flexibility with these new codes. So we feel, I mean, the 2024 codes are probably the most comfortable we've been since we've adopted the international codes starting back in 2000. So if you decide to move forward tonight or this afternoon, you can either choose to adopt the 24 building codes, IRC and IBC, with the recommended amendments as drafted in your ordinance, or provide other direction to staff, and this would be the action requested.
I move to approve ordinance number 4069, adopting the 2024 International Building Code and International Residential Code with amendments as drafted within the adopting ordinance.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Barrick, seconded by Commissioner Cunningham. Discussion, questions?
Just have a question, and I like the group of developers you have. But the biggest thing I always hear about developers is about fire suppression and stuff like that. What were their thoughts on stuff that you're implementing?
Yeah, so the codes do address fire suppression system, particularly fire sprinkler systems. So current codes, and they have, this isn't the first cycle in 2024, but even some of the past code editions did require fire sprinkler systems in 1 and 2 family dwellings. The state of Kansas actually has legislation in place that does not allow jurisdictions to adopt codes, or they have to amend that out if they adopt codes that do require 1 or 2 family dwelling sprinkler systems. That is one of the amendments in the ordinance. That was in the ordinance previously as well, because it was in the 2015 code already. And so we're not looking to increase sprinkler requirements. In fact, one of the amendments we have in here actually reduces sprinkler requirements for businesses such as maybe a small to mid-sized restaurant. The current code, or the 24 code as drafted, would require that facility to have a sprinkler system if the occupant load was over 100 people. The amendment in the ordinance as drafted makes that 300. So it gives them an additional occupant load of 200 people in addition to the 100 in code before they would have to sprinkle that facility. So that's actually, the state of Kansas is under the 2006 codes right now, and that is the current code, that 300 occupant load for sprinkler systems in the state code as well. So there were no issues there with, and like I say, it is a reduction. It's a benefit to developers and those types of business owners.
So why, when you said they're 2006 code, why would they be so far behind, and is that just how it works? I
That's a very good question. They've been talking for years about updating codes, and I know they're working in the process now again. At that level, it just takes a lot. However, the state of Kansas allows jurisdictions such as ours to adopt codes. I think the state considers that their minimum standard. So jurisdictions that don't have an adopted code technically are required to use that 2006 edition of the code, but we're allowed to move forward and adopt newer codes. So.
Thank you, Jesse.
I think it's really important that you get the buy-in from the builders before you get to the adopting part, because it just eliminates a whole lot of headaches down the line. So I commend you for taking that route. My only question is, once we adopt the ordinance, any housing that is in the developments that are already been sort of engineered, planned, designed, where does once we adopt the ordinance, where do those?
No, that's a good question, and I meant to address that. So as we have in the past, when we adopt new codes, anything under design is allowed to continue under its current design. We got plans 2 weeks ago for a commercial facility here that was designed under an older code. They'll be allowed to continue on. So there's definitely a kind of a, I don't know, called a buffer period between the time we adopt and the time of buildings happen. However, on the commercial side, most commercial projects we're seeing now are the architects and designers, engineers, they're using newer codes already than we have adopted. So they're either designing under the 18 or 21, maybe getting to the 24. So again, we don't see many plans that come in that are actually designed to the 2015 code. So it's just another reason to update the codes and update to what they're doing. But yeah, we typically haven't had no issue. No one's gonna have to redesign structures or plans through this update.
Great, appreciate that.
Would it be beneficial that we were looking at them as well every 3 years, or is that too encumbersome?
We've talked about that. I mean, there would be some benefits to that. Most jurisdictions in the state of Kansas they'll skip it one cycle and do it every 6 years. I can see it would be great to do it at least every 6. It does help the review process slightly. You don't get quite so far out. We're kind of seeing as the codes advance every 3 years, the significant changes are becoming less. I think they finally reached a point where most of the changes are technology and new products. Or you get things like the energy code, things like that. So at a minimum, we would like to at least look at every 6 years instead of going 9 or 10 like we have in the past years.
And then my last question is, it's kind of more specific about one of the amendments. With the fences not needing permits, make sure I understand it correctly too. No permit if they are below 6 foot in height, correct?
Correct, and that's been city code for probably 40 years.
Okay.
The building code says no building permit for fences 7 foot or less. We make that change, and the building code has said that for a long time, but we make that change to remain consistent with what we have always done. And we've had no issues with that whatsoever. So that particular change is something that has carried over every time we do code adoption.
Okay. It wouldn't matter if there's a concrete footing or no concrete footing.
Typically not. I mean, typically we know a fence can be, you can have a 6-inch concrete footing and a 6-foot fence. We consider that a 6-foot fence when we're out measuring.
So the last part of my question is, with previous conversations, do we think that that hinders any developments adjacent to them with drainage?
It's kind of the height of the fence really has nothing to do with
Okay.
Drainage, since all the drainage issues.
Because we
are
have no
happening at the
regulation
very
with
bottom.
that, correct?
Right, unless we sort of do, if we do have regulations that say a fence can't be placed within a drainage easement.
Okay.
So that they can't impede waters. But if it's just a neighborhood lot line, one neighbor to another, and one puts up a structure such as a fence with a footing that restricts drainage, that's a civil matter between private property owners.
Thank you.
We good? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
We are ready for progress. Thank you, Jesse.
Good afternoon, Colin Belzer, Deputy City Manager. Service Division crews placed 20 yards of concrete and about 4.5 tons of cold mix asphalt in the 100 block of East 6th Street, just north of the USD 489 bus barn. Much of the area didn't have curbs, so it did make parking difficult and confusing, and this is a very much needed and welcomed enhancement. Service Division also replaced a portion of concrete street that was removed for water resources to install a water tap for a new duplex under construction. And then they also had to repair some concrete that was needed because of a water main break that happened 25th and Plum area. It's that time for citywide pothole repair. So winter weather is very hard on pavement, and therefore in early spring, crews begin the process of repairing potholes citywide, and this will continue as long as needed to complete the repairs. And then Service Division crews have also been active with signal light maintenance citywide. So this includes cleaning camera lenses, replacing cabinet filters, as well as just an overall check. And then we also installed our first battery backup system for the signal lights at 27th and Vine Street. So this is the first intersection that has that, and the system will provide several hours of power to the signals in the event of a power outage like we had last Wednesday. And our plan is obviously to put more of these battery backups in more of our signalized intersections. Stormwater staff, along with staff from CVB and Water Resources, participate in the Water Fest at Sternberg Museum on March 18th. The fire department started flow testing hydrants, which is done in coordination with Water Resources. during their chlorine treatment process. There are over 1,100 hydrants throughout the city. We do about half a year. We split that. Staff received training from Landscape Structures on the global motion feature at the Arc Park. Also, parks staff kept busy keeping sure the streets were clear from fallen tree branches during our blizzard. Staff built and painted the markers for the disc golf course at Sunrise Park. That will be installed this spring. Just heard about. Staff also installed a storage box to house the portable pickleball nets for use on courts without permanent nets, and the pickleball nets were supplied by Hayes Rec Commission.
Has there been any issues with that so far, or?
Not yet that I'm aware of.
I mean, it's fairly new, so.
Officer Ty Davis read to the children at the Hayes Public Library. And then on March 3rd, we had a sergeant and community service officer attend the Fort Hays State University Criminal Justice Career Fair, and they fielded questions and passed out information about our Hays Police Department. PD started a community service officer program a few years ago, and it's been really successful. We've been getting a lot of officers new officers coming through that program. Water Resources and Project Management staff held a kickoff meeting in late February with Core and Maine and VPO Metering to discuss the installation of AMI meters. You can follow along with how that progress is happening at watersmarthays.com. Staff had to repair a water leak in the 600 block of West 13th Street. And then there are also 7 livestock tanks that have been delivered to the new well locations at R9. So we now have livestock water sources strategically placed throughout the property, so we'll be able to soon utilize the entire property within the rotational for our grazing, which obviously improves revenue that we can have for the leasing of the ranch for livestock. And then on Tuesday, March 18th, there was World Water Day Fun Fest was held at Sternberg Museum. City staff, along with 4-H water ambassadors, assisted in educating the public on conserving water and how to protect our rivers, streams from pollutants such as pet waste, runoff from fertilizers, etc. CVB had a lot of events this month. Here they are on February 28th and March 1st. They host a hospitality suite for coaches and administrators at Gross Memorial Coliseum during the 3-2-1A Boys and Girls State Wrestling. On March 7th, they provided a meal from galas for the Hayes High Wrestling Club, which helped to host the USA Western Kansas District 4 Wrestling Championship. This event had 1,353 participants. And then the NJCAA tournament was here in town on March 14th and 15th, and CVB provided a hospitality suite for coaches and administrators at that as well. And then on March 21st, CVB staff assisted with lunch distribution at the Special Olympics, Kansas State basketball and cheerleading tournament, and Mayor Sandy Jacobs welcomed the teams, family members, and volunteers at the opening ceremony. The reconstruction of 33rd Street continues to make progress, and several portions of the intersection have been completed, as well as work on the storm box extension. Kansas Highway Patrol hangar construction project continues to push forward, and it's scheduled to be complete at the end of this month. Curb and Brick, portion of the 2025 streets maintenance program has begun. Currently, section of 10th Street are undergoing work. And the county's alley replacement as part of the 2025 streets maintenance program has also begun. Fort Hays State University contacted the airport about exploring advertising opportunities, and one of their master's graphics classes created this visual to be displayed in the airport terminal.
It really looks good. If people haven't been out there, it's huge.
And the airport also did some improvements to the flooring. The ceramic tile was which was original to the terminal, was removed and replaced with some new flooring in its place. And then the airport sponsored the Fort Hays State University basketball games in late February. Airport and CV staff were present to man tables at the Pack Your Bags contest during the women's and men's half times. And as part of that, SkyWest actually donates round-trip vouchers to Denver for the winners. So, any questions?
Good stuff. Now what's coming?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Melissa Dixon from the Convention and Visitors Bureau with a busy month coming up in April. This is just the highlights. The Fort Hays State Encore Series will bring in the acting company to present Two Trains Running by August Wilson, and that'll be on April 3rd at Beach Schmidt Performing Arts Center. The Fox has 3 different shows in April, a comedy night followed by Chase Beckham, and then this year is actually the Fox's 75th anniversary. So they're going to have some special concert series branded with their 75th anniversary logo. So the first of those is Brock Wagner. On the 5th, we'll have the 57th annual Hayes High Plains Barbershop Chorus Concert. And you'll have 2 opportunities to see these talented gentlemen, 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock that day, also at Beach Schmidt. The sports complex is gearing up for the first of their big spring tournaments. The first week in April, we'll have First on the Turf baseball with 48 teams, then a 1-day fast pitch softball event with 25 to 30 teams, and then April Mayhem baseball should have around 75 teams. And this is a new 5K come to town with a partnership of CVB and Tourism and Hospitality at Fort Hays State University. We're trying to beef up that Jana Jordan Memorial Scholarship that benefits tourism and hospitality students. Keep that going. Apologies for the typo on the time. No matter your skill level, it should not take you that long to. What's wrong with that? Okay. I guarantee you'll cross the finish line before that. But registration at 8, start at 9, and every participant will be registered to win prizes that have been donated by other tourism partners. You can donate if you don't want to participate, but there is a 1-mile walk that everyone is welcome to. Easter egg hunts and activities. The IDD egg hunt will be at the Ark Park. That's presented by Celebration Church. The egg hunt specifically for dogs, presented by Hayes Rec out at the sports complex, not at the dog park. It's at one of the fields, so be sure. Details, you can find that on our website. Egg hunt and Easter bunny photos at Hayes Public Library on the 14th. I believe it's the 50-something Kiwanis egg hunt. They are good at it. They've been doing it a long time. It will be a quick event on the 19th on the Fort Hays State Quad at 9 a.m. Do not be late. And then on the 19th, an extravaganza at the Sternberg Museum with special programming and special activities.
That Kiwanis egg hunt, if it lasts 12 seconds, I'm shocked. I mean, there's a million kids and it's.
It takes so long to get it set up and put together, and then it's.
But it's wonderful, and it
Yes.
is much more than 50 years, I think. They've just done a great job with that.
IMCA races will take place out at RPM Speedway, and that stands for International Motor Contest Association, if you're wondering. I was wondering, so that's what it stands for. Out on the 12th and the 26th out at RPM Speedway. 59th Annual Rodeo. This will be the same weekend as Easter, and it'll be out at Ellis County Fairgrounds. They'll have special presentations with their new Hall of Fame that they have established. Fort Hays State's Open House and Scholarly and Creative Activities Day will include poster presentations, art and creative works, exhibits. They'll open up a lot of buildings to the public with special things that you can see that day. Events begin at 8, and there's free and open parking all day to encourage the community to come out. So that's on Thursday, April 24th. And then a bittersweet celebration. Lincoln is going to have their Centennial Community Celebration that Saturday, the 26th, and the community is invited to a come-and-go event at Lincoln from 1 to 4. Hayes Arts Council Spring Art Walk. Sometimes they do a Friday night affair. This one is a Saturday all day downtown and on Fort Hays State's campus, again on the 26th. Also on the 26th, TMP's Ace Auction fundraiser. Starts at 5, dinner, social hour at 5, dinner at 6, and the theme is Ace to the Future, Part 51. Cute. And this is not part of a Fort Hays State production, but this is a special event that's coming to Beach Schmidt, A Taste of Ireland. These are the do you need tickets? These are the famous river dancers, Lord of the Dance people that you've seen, along with some other champion dancers. So that's the 28th at Beach Schmidt Performing Arts Center. And all these events have details online at our calendar at visithays.com. And then there's way more than this, but I didn't want to hold you any longer than that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Commissioners, Musil.
I just wanted to, I guess, tell the commissioners, I just got back from a rural water conference in Wichita, and I had numerous people come up to me that they graduated Fort Hays, and I guess they work in eastern Kansas in leadership, and just amazed what we're doing, building, and wondering how we're doing it. And I always go back to, Toby, when we went to Manhattan many years ago on a retreat, and you said Manhattan, the way they did it is county, city, school board, everybody working together. And I try to explain that to everybody. I think we do a great job of that now, and I think that's where we're at. And it's just fun to have people come up to you and say, how are you guys doing that? And it's taken time, but we're doing a lot of good things, and people are noticing it. So it's good to see.
Mr. Barrick?
Yes, well, I sort of to echo a little bit on that is, we just got through our spring break last week. Fortunately, we had one day that was kind of wiped out part of the spring break, but it's really an awesome time to be able to check in with a lot of people coming through town, visiting town. We had a lot visiting the museum, and it's pretty great to sort of hear from people how much they appreciate the city, and they came to town to see Hayes, to see the museum, to see Hayes, not just I stopped because I was driving down the interstate, but they were making intentional trips to Hayes, and I think that's just a benefit that reflects on everything that all of the different groups in Hayes do to make it the quality of life that we have and make people want to stop.
Absolutely. Mr. Cunningham?
One of the other great things is that new high school we're building, and I got the pleasure last night of getting an updated tour. It's amazing. I mean, it was amazing when we went through it, but it has walls now and some carpet in places. And the fact to think that we will be able to host home events for that high school and recoup revenue for even the different clubs and programs through, concessions all the way up to other ways, but just the minor things up to the really big things. I feel like they've thought of a lot of detail and done a very good job with it. And then my last kind of thing to echo with that is that I watched the school board meeting on Monday, and I want to commend the high schoolers who came and spoke on behalf of the student body. It's amazing to see our youth take that initiative and take that on, and they did a really good job. So that's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Ritter?
I had the pleasure the last couple days being at the Dane G. Hansen Community Forum, and it was great to kind of see a lot of the people around our region come together, especially economic development folks, and hear about all the things that they're doing within their communities, and a lot of good, thought-provoking ideas. So I appreciate that. Other than that, happy opening day.
Happy opening day. Did you have a new score for us?
That's not good.
Oh, I don't want to hear
It's
it.
4-3, bottom of the 8th.
Okay. Speaking of youth, I wanted to remind students in the community, and maybe by reminding parents, I'll get it all the way down. Our Youth Leadership Advisory Board applications are currently being accepted and being accepted through March 31st. We have a number of them to date, but we'd like to look at a whole lot more. And in line with that, I'd like to ask staff, and I guess I'm specifically kind of looking at Jared, but of course you can give it to anybody you want, to review our ordinance that relates to the Youth Leadership Advisory Board. This is the third year, and you learn stuff every year when you do things like that. And I think we need to take a little look at it and see if there's some minor tweaks or changes we need. We've appreciated Jared Kuckelman being part of the meetings, and he adds a lot to it, and I think he probably even has some ideas about wording and things that might be good, because we want it to be successful. I can't imagine why there's not 50 kids applying for this thing every year, and that's not there right now. So I want to encourage parents to talk to your kids about the possibility of this. It's a great experience for them, and it takes them talking about leadership, and not just leadership, but city government and how you make things happen in a community. So I would encourage that. Do we have an executive session? No? we're adjourned.